All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're not just looking at a boring feature list. No, we're digging into a real-world story. It's about a development team, a tool they'd relied on for years, and that exact moment when good enough just wasn't anymore.
This is how the team described Hotjar, their analytics tool. It was just there. Kind of like old furniture. You don't really notice it anymore. You've learned to live with its little quirks, and it's just part of the background. It got the job done, well, until it didn't.
And that is the core of our story today. See, this wasn't some big dramatic explosion. It was something way more frustrating. A slow, maddening breakdown that forces you to second-guess a tool you thought you could count on. So, let's get into what actually went wrong.
Okay, part 1. The tool breaks. This is where the story really begins, when that feeling of, it's good enough, completely falls apart. And the problem wasn't everywhere. It was very specific to this team's unique setup.
Now, this is a super important point from the team's story. These problems really started popping up because they were building a modern single-page application. The kind of app that loads just once and then everything updates on the fly. They were using React, a styling method called CSS in JS, and they had these really complex user forms. For a simple website, Hotjar probably would have been fine. But for them, this modern tech stack was the trigger for all the headaches.
So, part 2, recordings go wrong. The whole breakdown really boiled down to two massive failures in the session recordings, the very feature they were paying for. So the first problem was all about privacy, but too much of it. Hotjar's default settings started masking things so aggressively that it hid the very user interactions the team needed to see. Imagine trying to figure out how people are using a form when all you can see are a bunch of blurry boxes. It's useless.
And this slide just perfectly sums up their frustration. They wanted to see how users were clicking on totally non-sensitive things like drop-down menus or radio buttons, but all they got back were these useless blurry rectangles. And trying to fix it meant messing around with these fragile settings that could break every single time they pushed new code. What a nightmare.
And then came the flip side of that problem, which was honestly way more serious. During an internal audit, they found it. An instance where sensitive user data and email address was captured in plain text. Now, it wasn't a Hotjar bug, but it was a result of their manual setup. If you miss tagging just one little element, boom, it gets recorded. This one discovery just completely shattered their trust.
On top of all the masking issues, the recordings themselves were just becoming a mess. They were seeing replays that would just cut to a blank white screen halfway through, clicks showing up in totally the wrong place on the page, and super choppy playback for anyone on a slower connection. You couldn't tell if it was a real user issue or if the recording tool was just broken.
Now for part 3, the high cost of distrust. Because these weren't just annoying tech glitches, right? They were having a real corrosive impact on the team's ability to actually do their jobs and build a better product. This quote just nails it. It really gets to the core of the problem. When you can't trust your data, you start second-guessing every little thing. The team found themselves saying things like, well, the recording shows this, but who knows if that's what really happened? A tool that's meant to help becomes a massive hindrance.
The distrust got so bad that the UX team actually made a new rule: don't watch replays of the billing page. The risk of accidentally seeing unmasked private data was just too high. So think about that. The single most important part of their entire user funnel became a complete blind spot. They were flying totally blind on their most critical pages.
Okay, so that brings us to part 4. Hotjar versus Clarity. The team was at a breaking point. They knew they needed a change. So they decided to run a direct, head-to-head evaluation between their old tool, Hotjar, and this new challenger, Microsoft Clarity. Let's break down how these two stack up on the features that really mattered to this team. You can see Hotjar still has some advantages, right? It's stronger on funnel analysis and has way more third-party integrations. But look at Clarity. It's free. It has automatic data masking, and it has built-in JavaScript error tracking. For this team's specific pain points, those were absolute game changers.
So to sum it up, it really all came down to these 3 things. The cost was 0, which is, pretty hard to argue with. The automatic masking solved their single biggest compliance headache, just like that. And the JS error tracking? That was a superpower they didn't even have before. A direct link from watching a user's broken session to finding the exact bug in the code.
So, part 5, making the switch. Clarity was looking like the clear winner on paper. But what about actually migrating? Switching analytics tools can be a huge pain. Well, in this case, the setup was surprisingly, refreshingly simple.
The whole process was literally just these 5 simple steps. Create a project, drop in a tracking script, add a few custom tags for your key events, and just verify it's working. There was no complex, fragile setup to worry about. It was designed to be fast, and for them, it was.
And now for the final part. Part 6, the verdict. So, the team made the switch. What were the actual results? Let's check out the impact after just 1 month.
The first result is a big one. Their bill for this kind of service went straight to zero. For a tool that's handling 18,000 user sessions a day, that's a pretty significant saving you can now put toward other things.
Now, this was a huge win for the development team. Thanks to that built-in JavaScript error tracking, they found and squashed 3 silent bugs. These are the kinds of errors that frustrate users but never get reported. That is an immediate, direct improvement in the quality of their product.
And here it is, maybe the most important result of all. 0. After a full month, they had 0 accidental data captures in their most sensitive area, the billing section. The automatic masking just worked, restoring trust and completely eliminating that scary recording dead zone.
The team's final piece of advice is so powerful because it's just so simple. If you're on the fence about a tool, don't just read blog posts. Run a trial. Install the new tag right alongside your current one and just let it run for a bit. The data you collect will tell you everything you need to know. It'll make the decision for you.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. It is so easy to get comfortable with the tools we use every single day. But it's worth asking yourself, is that familiar tool, that old furniture, still actually working for you? Or are you just getting really good at working around its problems?